I'm Logan Crawford, right now on Spotlight. For the love of God, for the love of the game. Can the two ever meet? Well, according to my next guest, Phil Trager, absolutely. He has written a book called God Intertwined with Basketball, and he believes that the spiritual dimension and the physical world are very closely related. And we are delighted to have Phil join us here today on Spotlight. Good to have you here today, Phil.
Thank you, sir. It's great to be here.
My pleasure.
But
Such an interesting concept. How did you ever come up with this?
a love for God and a love for basketball just seemed to come together. I had an interest in homeschooling, and I knew that would be one way to reach kids. And so it just sprang from a love that's really inside.
Absolutely. I mean, you got to, if you're going to get kids to listen and to connect and to understand, you got to put it in their terms. And sometimes using sports and sports metaphors are the way to go.
That's what I'm thinking. Yes, I can't imagine the child. In fact, many have learned the value of invisible from learning about the invisible diamond in basketball and transferring the concept then to the value of God being a value within invisibility. It makes it more believable.
Absolutely. Absolutely. For the folks at home, why don't you just give a brief synopsis of what your book is all about?
To begin, the opening aspect of the book speaks of a learning chart. And if you feel like it, you could do a learning chart just to simulate going through the book. The learning chart is meant to show appreciation for the intelligence of the person reading the book. It's also meant to show appreciation for the personality of the person reading the book. That's the purpose of the learning chart, and it functions every 3 pages in the book. There's an LC, which refers to the previous 3 pages. And within those 3 pages, the person reading the book then would stop for a moment and say, okay, what are the favorite parts that I just read? What parts do I want to retain? What parts do I question? And which parts don't I like? So the learning chart is a foundational to the book, but it's also foundation to human relating, where people appreciate one another. Then we hope, and through the work of all this, we understand to admire God who presents himself in the feelings of love and joy as we go through the work. That will surely be apparent, and we surely do appreciate him for that help. Then the book jumps to the notion of delight in the Lord, and he will give you the desires of your heart. That's also in the New Testament says, seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all our needs will be added unto that. So that's the gist of the book, and basketball happens to be some of the desires of people's heart. And so,
Wonderful.
yeah,
It's such a great concept. I think it really connects with readers. And like I said, you caught my attention right away just with the title because it was so intriguing. Tell me a little bit about your life and your work, your life in basketball, your life with God, your life in teaching.
that's very interesting. I never think about it very often. Basketball has always been a love. And then as a freshman in high school, we had a pastor who taught us to question everything, which prompted a search for then truth being real to each believer. So respect for humanity, respect for me was shown when he told me search and find out if these things are really true, which then I've carried on doing that since. He didn't hit us over the head with this is the way it's got to be. He just said let's search together and pick up searching as a way of life. So that began the love of religion. Basketball, I think it's one of the things that God instilled in the motor skill coordination of my brain, which then translated to my heart, desire to be a player. And so then those are two loves then, how they were generated, you know.
Mm.
I actually worked in a factory for 43 years, although I had a teaching degree, and I just kept growing along the way. both theologically, basketball-wise, and educationally, even though I was doing hard labor, and which I really enjoyed and found meaningful.
Well, it's definitely good for the soul doing hard labor. I think you learn a lot about yourself, a lot about your capabilities, a lot about your limitations, and it's certainly God's work, as we like to say. Now, you talked about learning from this pastor. Did you go to Catholic school or something, or was this through a church group?
Actually, it was through a church group, and it was a Methodist church.
Okay,
The,
interesting.
past, the pastor had gone to Drake University and then studied at the theological seminary in Chicago and Evanston area.
Mhm.
And then he ended up in a little town called Marseilles, Illinois. And he definitely knew how to respect people, all people.
Yeah,
And that was so appreciated. You could
wonderful.
disagree with, even disagreeing with him, he was still gentle and accepted the disagreement and respected our thoughts.
Yeah, I had the privilege of being educated by Irish Christian brothers, Jesuit priests, and they're very thoughtful, very intellectual people. And I hope some of their wisdom imparted on me, at least a little bit. I don't claim to be a Jesuit, that's for sure. But tell me about writing this book. What inspired you to actually put pen to paper and take all these thoughts you had about God and about sports and about teaching about religion and put it down all into a book?
This is actually my second book. The first book was called Camp Fundamentals, The Invisible Diamond. And I wrote that because I had been in the factory for all those years, but I did have something in my heart that I thought and knew would be valuable. I had a benign brain tumor for much of my life, and that hindered what I was actually capable of doing. But the desire to do something was still in my heart. So I wrote the first book, and then when I retired, I wanted to be productive,
Mm-hmm.
and I had an outside chance that it might make $1 or two, but it was something I really loved. So I sat down then and I took some of the thoughts from the first book and tried to put them in this book, which used PACE education as a model and a format for the structure of the book. But it was really just a chance to give something I love.
Wonderful. How long did it take you to write it?
This book only took about 3.5 months.
Mhm.
Pretty intense, though.
Yeah.
The first book took over 5 years, and it was much more difficult. But having gone through that, then some of this one was easier to do, and it's not as long either.
It's like shooting baskets. Keep on doing it, it gets easier and easier, right?
If you know what you're doing.
Even if you don't know what you're doing, I think it does get a little bit better the more you shoot.
I was going to say that in January of 2020, I made up my mind I was going to get my shot back. I couldn't make 3 shots in a row, even with the knowledge.
Wow.
Now it's 2022, and I've become a relative. It has come back to me, and it has been shooting over time that has caused that to happen. Yes.
That's amazing. So you made a goal for yourself or a resolution to start shooting more baskets in 2022, and now you're doing it. You're out there on the court a couple of days a week.
Yes, actually, in January of 20, I started real. I was determined I was going to get my shot back, and now it's 2022, and over that span of 2 years, yes, I go out there 2 or 3 times a week, right? And I just love it. It's in my blood, and it has come back.
That's
Yes,
wonderful. That's got to be make you feel young again to be able to sink a couple.
yes, it keeps me flexible, and I also realize the limitations of age, but I do have a peppy spirit from it.
Exactly, exactly. What do they say? The spirit is strong, but the flesh is weak, to quote the Bible.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yes.
exactly.
Yes.
I'm
That's a good.
probably after you started shooting basketballs for the first time, you're probably a little sore afterwards, right?
Oh, I still get sore.
Yeah.
I'm still stretching my limits.
Well, that stretching your limits is all good stuff. Do you have another book in you, Phil? Are you thinking about writing anything else?
I have this book centers on what to do when you have the ball. Well, the next book then is going to center on what you do when you don't have the ball. And then the next books after that will be drills and various other aspects of the game, you know.
Right.
But I've got another one written, but I'm just taking my time to see how this one does, you know. I've got the second one written of what to do without the ball, you know.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, it's good to enjoy the ride. You've got this book out there. Enjoy the fun of having that book out for print and out for download as well. The name of the book is God Intertwined with Basketball. It's a wonderful book. It'll teach you a little bit about a sport, a lot about religion, and perhaps a lot about yourself as well. Phil Trager has written it, and we are delighted to have him as a guest here today on Spotlight. Phil, thank you so much for being our guest.
You're welcome. Pleasant being with you.
Same here. And to the folks at home, I'm Logan Crawford, thanking you for your time this time. Until next time on Spotlight.